Greetings, my fellow truth seeker. Are you ready to step onto your path and discover the hidden truth behind your reality? Are you prepared to expand your mind and go beyond the matrix? Good. Join me and welcome to your fate.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I am bringing you psychologist, mystic, breathwork practitioner, and author of the new book, Essence Merging. Dr. Colleen Quinn is here with me today. Dr. Colleen, how you doing today? Welcome to your fate, my friend.
Well, thank you, Christy, for the beautiful introduction. And I feel so excited to explore these topics with you, talk in these spiritual terms. It's my favorite language, so I'm feeling very excited. Thanks for having me.
I feel the same. There's nothing more that I like to talk about than spiritual concepts and near death experiences. From what I understand, you've had two, and I can't wait to hear your story. Every single time I hear someone speak of their own near death experience, I learn more. It illuminates me even further into the magical way in which our lives truly are. So, can we start there? Can we start with your own journey? What your near-death experience was. Can we begin there?
Sure. So as you can imagine, it's not a short story. I believe that the love squeezes we get more and more intense based on what we need to learn, how resistant we are to learning it, to crack open our hearts so love can get in. So my story really starts when I'm 27. I have a brother who's 12 years younger than me, and I was a surrogate mother for him. We talked every single day. Our mother had bipolar disorder, and I was really a safe base for him. And I was a mother of two young children myself, and we talked one day. The next day, we didn't talk because he was in a car accident, hit head on in his lane, and he died. And I think that he had dreams. I think he knew it was coming. He said to my mother, he died on July 14th, and on 4th of July, he wanted to set off fireworks. And my mother said, "No, you're going to kill yourself." And he looked her in the eye and he said, "You will not be able to prevent my death."
Oh, wow.
So he knew, and he was accepting of it. I think he was a very selfless person, very funny, and I think he knew he had accomplished what he came here to do, and that his death would accomplish so much more of the things he wanted, which it did. That's a story in and of itself. But part of me died when he died. And our egos give us these delusional beliefs to hang on to because they're trying to protect us from what they think we can't handle. They have well intention, but it always comes at a cost. So in my mind, God was wrong. A bipolar mother shouldn't have to go through this. A 15-year-old should never have to die. And we should have been absolved. This should have never happened. Well, Christy, you can imagine how that my grief turned into a very deep, dark, angry depression. And I carried it for 3 years. It was heavy. At the end of that 3 years, I couldn't take the weight of it anymore. I wouldn't laugh because I thought I would be dishonoring my brother. And he's the funniest guy I knew. But I pulled into a church parking lot, and all I could say to this love energy was, "I'm so angry. I really can't speak, but I'm asking you to take the hardness off of my heart." And that, I think those prayers uttered from the very end of our strength, when we have nothing left, we're finally in surrender, and love can come in, and the clouds part immediately. And it was a prodigal son moment. money fell into our laps. My brother always wanted us to own our own home for his nephews. It was really important to him. We bought a house, and my heart started to thaw. I came back into life, but not with 2 feet. There was always a part that I had reserved for my brother. And so, I don't know, 15, 20 years later, I'm driving to see my niece in a play, pouring torrential downpour. She was a couple hours from my house, and I'm hit head on in my lane. I broke 17 bones. I had 5 surgeries, weeks in intensive care. My heart stopped. I was in the tunnel with the light. That's a very powerful experience when you are inculcated with light. And our true natures, we would do anything for that love and that light. Like whatever the light said, I'm like, of course. So the light conveyed in ideas, we would like you to go back, but it's your choice. Well, when the light said it, of course, I'm like, yes, of course, I'm going back. That's brilliant. So I came back, and for the first time in 20 years, I realized that I'm choosing this. The reality is we all choose it every day that we wake up. But it's so easy to live in these delusions. So finally claiming the power of that choice changes everything. Secondly, when you have the visceral experience that your consciousness lives on, Einstein said energy cannot be created nor destroyed, and that's been borne out in quantum physics. When your consciousness feels that and lives it, it becomes unrefutable. And so it takes the sting out of death. There is nothing to fear. It's the homecoming. So that was really powerful. Now, years later, after my second near-death experience, I was being trained to be a breath worker, and the trainers did not know any of this backstory. She just knew I was in the car accident, and she said to me, Colleen, you must have surrounded yourself with some kind of death energy to draw that experience to you. Now, Christy, that is controversial. And there was an instant resonance in me. I did draw that to me. Every experience is love, even when it feels hard and dark and challenging. It's all love. It's all for our becoming. And I knew she was right that I hadn't been fully alive. I needed it to become fully alive.
In
Go
other
ahead.
words, are you saying in a roundabout way that I have a couple of questions before we go on. When you had your accident, had you stepped on your path yet?
Well, I always knew myself as a spiritual being,
Okay.
but my ideas of what that really was were very colored by culture, my Catholic upbringing, my trauma, lots of influences that I often saw God then as this patriarchal being outside of me. And I'm praying, which is me doing all the talking, listing my demands of how I think it should go. So I knew I was a spiritual being, but I had not had a soul experience, an awakened experience yet. No.
Do you feel in a way that accident I'm going to make an assumption here. After your accident, after your near death experience, did that prompt you to go deeper and get on your path and start removing the dogma of the Catholic Church and your upbringing and really get into the discovery of who you really are? Is that what prompted it? Just
Oh, Christy, that would be so lovely because maybe I wouldn't have had the second near-death experience. The truth is, I was listening to Christian music when I had that uh, accident. I was very steeped into the Bible. I studied it for 7 years, non-denominationally, weekly classes. And there was providence around it. I don't think for most of us that learning is one and done. We have to revisit these experiences over to learn them in a deeper way. So it was my second near-death experience where I had pneumonia for over 10 months, coughing up ketchup-sized packets of blood, fighting get to find a breath. When I found out I would be well, even though I was very sick, that caused me to take stock in my life. And I said, I've helped a lot of people, but who have I really formed bonds with? Where are the love connections? Who would even come to my funeral? Love is all that matters. And I started sobbing again at the end of my strength, my face wet with tears. I'm prostrate on the floor, begging, just let me be love in every moment. And Christy, the irony isn't lost on me that this act of fighting to find a breath led me to the practice of breath work. In short order, that prayer, within weeks, I learned about a retreat on the other side of the world in Costa Rica. It was a radical change to my marriage contract that I'm going to take a vacation without my husband doing the spiritual stuff. He's like, yeah, go for it. I think he was happy that I was alive. He's like, yeah, you do you. And going to that retreat, learning breath work, having many somatic experiences, that was the catalyst. That changed everything. I had my first awakened experience during that week.
What was that like? What do you mean by awakened experience? What did you experience?
Great question. It was powerful. So I will say that during that week, my subtle body, because I surrender, it's very vulnerable, and you think, wow, your ego's saying, if you surrender, who knows what'll happen? Like these guides, who knows what they could do? That's the ego wanting to protect us, but it felt so luscious, and so I would just be drawn in. But when you're drawn in like that, your subtle body loosens from your physical form. And because breath work really does work with the ego, unlike psychedelics will throw you right into your soul, and hopefully it's all good in there and there's no scary stuff. But breath work is gentler. So it gives you these love trips. And I think that what happens is as we go deeper in the conscious breath, and the energy body loosens, it naturally magnetizes because the electromagnetic field in every cell, which is 99.999% space, is God. It magnetizes to that whole. And so the trips are very psychedelic. Visions or auditory downloads or palpable sensate experiences. And I was hooked from the beginning. But towards the end of the week, we were doing a group breath work, and I was totally in the oneness. It was like a light display. It was incredible. And I had the thought, I don't want to leave here. Well, that's ego. Boom, I'm back in this dimension. And my ego wanted to give me a story that it thought I could handle. And so when I came back, the story was, oh, they're all over there and I'm over here. I'm left out from this human group, because it was trying to protect me from the feeling that I could be left out from this cosmic experience. Another delusion, because that's not true, but it was trying to protect me. So the day before, I tell everyone about my feelings of feeling left out. Well, the next day, it's pouring rain in Costa Rica. There's icicles in my hair, and our shaman, a Panaman, says he's going to walk down to the ocean, and anybody who wants to follow can follow. Well, I was definitely going because I'm not going to be left out again. I didn't have my shoes on, So the rocks are digging into my feet, my teeth are chattering, and I had no choice but to drop into breath. It's amazing. Dropping into my conscious breath, the pain goes away. That's amazing. But we get down to the beach. We're there for like 15 minutes, and everybody turns to go back. I turn to go back, and I feel this energy behind me. And I had just had the experience of feeling left out. But this is the great playwright stories, how they all layer on to prepare us for what needs to happen. So I turn around. It's someone in the group that I didn't know all that well at the time. His name was Ali, totally entranced, standing up in the pelting rain in another dimension. So I decide to put my hand on his back. And he was there for a while, and my arm's getting tired. And once I made the intention is powerful catalyst energy. So I make the intention, I don't care if we stand on this beach for the rest of my life. I'm standing here with my hand on his back. My hand was supported. It was fine. And I go into the deep trance. Well, it was a cloudy sky because it was raining. That dimension opened up. I saw 3 other galaxies on different axes lined up, and I saw how the stars talk to each other through the beams of light. I also saw that every experience is like the snowflakes that come down from the sky. So it starts as a drop of water, and it's the wind, the barometric pressure, the velocity, the temperature changes, all of these distresses that etch the beauty into the unique beauty into that drop of water to make it the most magnificent piece of art before splat. It hits the earth and it goes back up to the cloud. And that is the same journey, whether you are a rock, a person, it doesn't matter. That's the same. So this is all revealed to me. And then the guide comes looking for us. We were just coming out of it. We don't say anything, but he can tell that we're totally blissed out. I get back to the cenote, and there is no me. There's no me. There's no you. It's just the experience. And my consciousness is flitting back and forth into each speaker. It's fully the experience. And then I was like, this is so trippy that this has eluded me for so long. Like, why aren't we all walking around in our true remembrance? It's our journey, but when you feel it, it changes everything. Now, I want to ask you a question. So I read a lot of spiritual books. I love this, beloved. I love this journey. And this is something I think about a lot. Is there really such a thing as enlightenment, or are there enlightened experiences that could last weeks and weeks? I've been weeks in a flow state, but my ego always comes back. So is enlightenment a destination, or is it an experience that you can be in for a varied amount of time?
I mean, that's a very difficult, complex question. And I don't even know if I'm the one to answer it. I'm in my own spiritual journey in the beginning and I'm still in learning phases, but I will say a few things. I'll say that I think that we're all here to have an experience that is human, that is not so much being in a state of enlightenment. I think when you reach that state of enlightenment, when you're experiencing oneness, that there was no separation, that it's all, that everything is consciousness. The more I walk in this journey, the more I understand it is all about consciousness. Our consciousness goes beyond these bodies. We are not these bodies. We are beings of light. We are light energy experiencing this 3D plane through our own nervous systems. And that is what we're here to do. I think we all have soul missions here, soul purposes here. I think that we have many lives to learn, grow, and expand our own consciousness to experience separation. And I think we're not here to experience that bliss 24/7. We're here to be humans having a human experience. However, once you have that enlightened experience and you peek beyond the veil of what truly is, I don't think you ever come back from that. And I think you have a level of knowledge, of emotional intelligence, of wisdom that propels you into wanting to tell as many people about it as possible, which is why I started this show. I mean, I've never done breath work. I've known about breath work. I'd love to go on a journey in like Costa Rica and do a retreat or something, but I have done a few psychedelic plant medicine journeys. And that kind of is what the first thing that cracked my own skull open to thinking outside of what mainstream tells us what our reality is and who we are. So I don't know, to round back on your question, because I could talk about it forever and I will just carry on. I think I think it's what I said. I don't know if we're here, maybe monks or people that are in that practice 24 hours a day are supposed to live in that bliss, that enlightenment, that journey. And I think everybody has their own path. And maybe some people's path, that's what they're supposed to be here. Maybe they've journeyed on this plane so many times, they're at that level where they're here to experience enlightenment and show others and teach. But most of us are here as like dumb souls trying to work it out, trying to understand who we are. And you either attain a level of awakening or you don't. You come back and you get another shot at it. And maybe it's to the point where your experience and my experience feels similar. I had to get dragged down. I had to lose my ego, lose my identity, lose my ability to function in the world. I got sick, and I've spent a decade climbing up out of a hill, getting kicked back down, climbing up out of a hill and getting kicked back down. But all the while, I've been voraciously learning about who I am and opening up to love and loving myself and in reading and listening to spiritual teachers and figuring out who am I and how am I to heal this body, and then what am I going to do with this information? I'm going to go out and tell other people, hey, you can heal too. Here's some of the ways you can do it. I think there's a great awakening happening on this planet. I think so
Oh,
many
for
people
sure.
are like, this is, the jig's up. Like, we're starting to understand, like, nah, man, this is not the way it is. There's more. We're more. So I don't know. I think that enlightening experiences are a gift that puts you on a path. But I don't know if we're supposed to be feeling that bliss, love all the time. I think we're supposed to be experiencing what it is to be a human and deal with our emotions. And we don't know how to deal with our emotions or our egos. You keep mentioning ego, and I keep thinking to myself, man, our egos are a lot of the problem on this plane. We just can't seem to get a handle on those egos, man.
Well, Christy, I feel like I might have given the ego a bad rap. And so I do want to say that our egos are a conglomeration of our wounded children. They were
Mm.
born when our caregivers rejected parts of us. We had to stay aligned with our caregivers. They had to be right because they're feeding us and clothing us. So what they rejected, we rejected. We pushed it into the shadows, and they love us. They come up because they genuinely feel the red flags. They are in tune to the energy. That's a great gift. And so they're not the bad guys. We When we feel overwhelmed, we let them blend with us, and that's where all the reactivity and the coping is immature. This is where we have the same conditioned patterns. How did I get here again? How did I get sick again? How did I lose my job again? Because they have blind spots, but their intentions are good. And so I do believe that part of awakening, well, a big part of awakening, 95% of what we do is unconscious. When you bring the unconscious into consciousness, now you can choose. So when I'm in the place of the witness and one of those wounded children comes up and I can say, "Oh, I feel you're afraid. What is the wisdom you have for me?" And they can share with me what they're afraid of. Something is askew. Now, I might from my higher self be able to forge ahead anyway. That's most of the time. And so I'm going to say thank you for the wisdom for alerting me, and I'm going to hold you, and we're going to walk forward consciously. So I think that I want to say too that I don't think enlightenment is a blissed out state. I think enlightenment is consciously feeling your feelings, doing that inner work. It doesn't mean you have to do it in a group of people and bring everybody else down. That's reactivity. But if I excuse myself or even tell my feelings, you're important, and I'm going to ask you to hold a vigil, and I'm going to come and speak with you. We're going to spend time together and work this out. And that's not spiritual bypassing. You have to feel your feelings. But when you can do that consciously, go do that inward journey, whether it's through psychedelics or meditation or breath work, all three do the same physiological things in the brain, which might be of value to your listeners to hear about. And then you fully feel it. You get back in that high frequency, back in your conscious breath, which is the gateway to presence. So there's two things. There's breath work, and then there's conscious breathing. When we can bring our conscious breath into this human dimension, we're more likely to have, not more likely, we will have a higher frequency. And then you can come into that dimension with your highest energy from the place of the witness, being in love. And I love that saying. We all know what it's like to fall in love. When we can bring that beingness where we don't have to do anything, we just have to be in the experience, fully absorb it from that open-hearted place of love. Well, that's an enlightened moment. And that is the definition of essence merging. There's no you, there's no me. There's that merging with the experience.
I agree. And I also think that part of my journey has been the living consciously part, meaning I'm very present in my moment. If I'm having emotions, I ask myself, what is this trying to teach me? What am I doing? What do I need to be learning? What do I need to adjust? And feeling my emotions and releasing them and transmuting them, and then trying to get back into that higher vibration so I can bring in my highest and greatest good, How do you feel? What do you feel like the nature of our reality is, and how do you feel about organized religion now today? Because I feel like a lot of why we can't awaken to the true nature of our reality is that we are, number one, giving most of our power away to authority, whether it be a church, a parent, a teacher, a university, uh,
Politics.
politics, yeah, which is just a it's just crazy. But I feel like there is almost a underlying current of multiple layers keeping us from expansion of consciousness on this plane. Like they don't want us to understand who we are. If everybody understood who we were, we wouldn't, our literal earthly plane would transform. There would be no lack mentality. There would be abundance. There would be joy. There would be cooperation. Like all of that is possible, but for some reason, it's beaten out of us.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the movie The Matrix was so revolutionary because this material world seems so solid. It's so alluring, this virtual reality headset that we're all wearing. It seems so dense and so real. And we know from science, everything is 99.999% space. the energy realm is far more real. And to piggyback off of what you said, Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret, which is all about manifesting, literally uncovers, these powerful, the Illuminati, all these groups that don't want us to know the truth of who we are, that we are limitless beings. We are God. And the irony is, most of us are afraid to feel pain. If you call it pain, you'll have more resistance. Word energy is incredibly powerful, the most powerful energy in this realm. When Moses asked God, "What should I call you?" he said, Yahweh, which means I am. When we say I am tired or I am an idiot, we are taking a temporary phenomenon, making it a permanent state. When we say I am limitless, well, thoughts become things. So the power to do this, but what's fascinating, and I think maybe Rhonda Byrne doesn't talk about it as much, is the commonality with manifesting and what most religions talk about is the faith piece. That's what Rhonda Byrne doesn't talk about. It's going to be tested. The universe wants to know, do you really believe it? You're saying it. You might believe it in your head, but do you believe it in your heart? Are you living it in your being? And that is when it's going to come into form. Energy matters. If you want to change your life, start to become conscious about what you think and what you say.
I say that so much on this show. I say it all the time. Like, careful what you say when you're speaking. Your spelling. Words matter. Intention matters. Your attention, what you focus on, is gonna grow. Like, your belief system is everything. Like, we are so much more capable of controlling our exterior realities based on our nervous systems, our emotions, the power of our minds. We are powerful beings, folks. We are powerful. And if more people understood that there is a path there to harness it, to understand it, to believe in it, and then to literally have that be reflected with synchronicity in your life, with your spirit guides coming in and assisting you, like, our lives are so much more than what we think they are, and we're distracted by things that don't matter. We're obsessed with materialism. We are just so ill-informed on what makes us function, and we're very vulnerable to programming, like super vulnerable.
Absolutely. This is why most people that are really on a spiritual journey get so sensitive to programming, to foods that we put in our bodies, because our bodies, we can hear what they're saying more clearly. So, the programming, it's sensory, it's not good. But conversely, I want to talk about how um when we do breath work, as we get, initially those first ascent trips are very colorful, very lively, but as you go deeper in, you realize that you're allowing your soul to go into the void. The void is essentially darkness, and getting comfortable in that darkness, you realize how full it is. All the possibilities are in there. The light is in there. When you can go into that darkness with trust, that's when the manifesting happens, and you believe it in your life here. But I'm convinced, and you talked about how we're in this great collective awakening. I think we're in the second labor pain of it. The first one was COVID. We're in the second one, and all of my spiritual friends, the details are different, but the lesson is trust beyond what is seen. That is the big thing that I think we're all being asked to learn now. And you get to practice it by going into the void, into the darkness. And when you can be in that trust, it is a facet of love. It is a facet of bliss. What's interesting is when we are magnetized to the whole, we're in union. I think people talk about I'm looking for love, but what we're really all looking for is the union that we remember before the Big Bang, when we were all there. Everything was in there, nothing was rejected, and we were whole. Whole is wholeness, it's wellness, it's holiness. They're all come from the same root word. Well, it is that emptiness that we have in our hearts that we're trying to find our way back to the wholeness.
Yeah.
When we feel that wholeness, when we're in wholeness, we feel it and we call it bliss. When we have the feeling of bliss, we say it's love. What it really is wholeness.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And so when we can go into the darkness and know that that is wholeness and feel that trust, that's the power to change. That is that almighty power.
And don't you think really the most important change, you brought up politics and all that stuff. I feel like the most important change is within. Once you change within, no one is going to be able to change anyone else. Like, that's just not how we're built. Like, you can't do it. Even as a child, like, no one could tell me anything. I had to learn all my stuff. I had to learn on my own. I had to learn my own mistakes and take my scars and keep moving. But when you start understanding that change actually, if you want to change your exterior, you change your interior. It's not the other way around. You're not going to change your exterior and then change inside. You change inside and then you change your outside. And that's how you create the world in which you want to live in, which is really much more about loving yourself than it is loving somebody else. What do you
Well,
think about that?
well, Christy, I agreed with everything until that very last sentence, because loving yourself and loving everyone else is the same thing, because there
That's
is
true.
no other person.
That's true.
But if my definition of love is the greater good action to uplift the whole that includes you. When we have trauma backgrounds, which most of us do, people pleasing is our go-to ego's coping mechanism, because we learned from a young age, my needs don't matter. I got to make sure everybody else is okay. It's an overused pattern, and it negates our worth, our worthiness. It starts here. If what I don't love in here, I can't love out there. What I judge in here, I'm judging out there. What I reject in here, I reject out there. And it goes on and on. What I manipulate in here and delude myself in here, I'm manipulating and deluding out there. I have to do it in here first. So, but this is love. It all this work transcends to harmony in here, harmony out there.
That's right. 100%. I mean, the root of all of what's going on is that all of us are in pain. We don't know how to heal. We're all sick. We are not. I'm in my own healing experience. I have learned very much that Western medicine is not the key to healing your body. I mean, obviously, you got to detox your body and eat the right food, but a lot of it is trauma stored in your body, energy trapped in your body. It's causing illnesses, it's causing stomach problems, it's causing mental illness. And we're not addressing the root cause of illness, which I think a lot of it is mental, it's physical, it's
All of it.
emotional. Yeah.
There's research to support that. For everything down to diabetes, GI disorders, cancer. Stress is at the root of all illness. Dis-ease produces disease. It is that lack of integration and harmony. So what's interesting about this is another question that I ponder and I don't have the answer to. I'm in my own breathwork journeys, and they're powerful because when you learn to detach from your body and you go to the cosmos initially, but eventually you'll just hover over your own body unless you purposely focus to go to the cosmos. Well, when you're hovering over your own body at your soul, at your ego's pace of readiness, You're looking through the eyes of love, and traumas will come up. Things you forgot about that you have stored and carried faithfully for how many decades. You will finally be able to feel them. You'll be looking through the eyes of love as the witness, and you will be able to fully feel them. That is step one to healing. You have to feel what you don't want to feel, what you resist persists. So you've got to feel it. Eventually, you have to complete the action that did not get completed at the time when you were overwhelmed in order to rewrite new programming in your nervous system. And that might take going into that action many, many, many times. For womb trauma I went into the womb for a year after a psychedelic trip to fully integrate my nervous system, to harmonize it. So breath work is a lovely means to do that descent work. But my question that I don't know the answer to, because my journey had ascent trips and descent trips. When you have an ascent trip, the commonality between breath work, meditation, and psychedelics is when the Hindus have the term kundalini, that it's going to shoot up the spine, get to the pineal gland. Physiologically, it's a compression of the crystals in your spinal fluid. They get compressed into the ventricles, and then they massage that pineal gland, and DMT is released. DMT is the active ingredient in those psychedelic healing plants, many of them, yes. When that DMT is released, it is sending messages to your cells of well-being. You get an upgrade in the amount of interstitial fluid in your cells. And with the more fluid, you actually amplify at a higher frequency. That's amazing. But also on a PET scan, when you are in that place where you've loosened from your body, your whole brain lights up. You should see these PET scans. Instead of the 9 well-grooved pathways that we see on a functional MRI of the default mode network that maps perfectly onto Freud's construct of the ego, instead of that gets us sleepwalking through life, our whole brain is lit up. It's all talking. That's a gamma brainwave pattern, and that is coherence in the brain. So you're bringing these experiences where your whole inner system is harmonized. It is coherent. When you can practice that every day, you're healing your body. And my question is, do you really? I mean, I'm a psychologist. I had to do it personally, but do you have to do these descent trips? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it could be different for everybody. I really feel that everybody has their own path to healing. Everybody's path looks differently, and I don't know if there's one right answer for that. I mean, it's TBD, Dr. Colleen. Yeah. I mean, I really think that there's so much even now that so much of this information is coming to light. I mean, breath work, psychedelics, meditation, manifestation is so mainstream. Everyone talks about that. But this idea that we're be more than what we think we are, and that there's a mystical, magical element to our being that is alive, that's conscious, and that we are not our egos. We are the awareness behind the awareness. As you know, we are the observer. That is who we truly are. We're the observer of this plane. And we are not our egos. We're not our physical bodies. We are, I like to say that we are of love, and we go back to love. At the end of the day, the biggest thread through every spiritual teaching out there is love.
And unity. And unity.
And unity.
Which is the same thing.
Yeah. Yes. 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 And I think, I think there's just going to be an absolute wave of people that are going to start truly unhooking from the programming, from the dogma that we have been um, programmed with for thousands of years. And I think part of that also, I'd like to have your take on that, woman to woman. Part of that is for women to understand that we, as the feminine divine, need to rise up and take our place in society alongside men to balance out that masculine and feminine energy so we can save the planet, so we can bring more healing. We are the healers. We are the portals in which beings incarnate on this planet. We never should have been subjugated. We always should have had a say. And this society should be much more matriarchal than patriarchal. And they like to point to the jungle and how it is in nature. And my degree is in animal behavior and neurobiology. And most of the societies in the animal world are matriarchal. Elephants, matriarchal. Lions, matriarchal. There's plenty of examples where women, the feminine divine, are the leaders. We should be run by wise older women, not by white men that think they're superior to the feminine.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Christy, you mentioned we're in this great collective awakening. So
Yeah.
I know of two cultures, the Aztecs and the Hindus, as well as astrology, that predicted this period. And the great news is they predicted how the story ends. So I love that. Einstein said imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions because thoughts become things. These people saw it when they were deep in mystical states. And so what they predict is that feminine energy, not necessarily women, but the energy of compassion and greater good for the whole, would rule, as well as that it would be common knowledge, maybe not that we're all one, but that we're all connected, that what I do affects the butterfly in China and everyone else. And so I'm grateful to be here for this love revolution. But the other thing that comes to my mind is that on the sides of the spinal column are two tubes called the Ida and the Pingala, and they intertwine around each chakra. They actually cross over at each chakra, and they are said to house masculine, so the Shiva energy, and feminine, the Shakti energy. And it's only when both are working in conjunction that you get that Kundalini shooting up the spine for that enlightened moment, that bliss. You need both. They need to be equal. We are all the same. As unique manifestations of God, no one is better than anyone. So everything is needed. I don't know, this came to my mind, and so I want to share it. This is new research that's out. We found that bird songs actually open up the pores on trees so that they can inspire their CO2 at a greater rate. That is fascinating to me because music and math are the language of the universe. Music is harmony. Harmony is that wholeness, that coherence we're talking about. With that vibration of harmony, it gets the trees to breathe at a more conscious level. They're the most enlightened beings on our planet, and yet we can all still up level.
Yes. I think the greatest travesty right now in humankind is our lack of respect and knowledge that we need nature, that nature is everything. It's our teacher, it's our healer, it's everything. We are connected to it. It is connected to us. And unless we save it, humanity will be lost. And we have to start understanding we are nature. We need nature. And it is the most important gift on this planet. I'm going to keep saying it.
Well, I agree with that. And I want to say that Mother Earth, Gaia, will be just fine. We're a blip on this planet. The dinosaurs lived for millions of years, right? We have been here for thousands of years. We're a literal blip. I believe that in 3 ways, this was revealed to me in breathwork, she is trying to save us. She loves us. She's trying to save us. So, one, there was a mass exodus off this planet with COVID, and we had a baby boom. Obviously, a lot of people were indoors. Well, those babies being born are coming in amplifying at a higher frequency. Pema Chodron, who is probably an enlightened monk, said enlightenment was really hard 50 years ago because it's kind of like the avatar tree. There was nothing to plug into, but the collective frequency is higher, and what's out of alignment with it is felt as pain. But when we wake up and we're amplifying higher, we have something to plug into. Well, these babies raise the field even higher. So that's one way. Two, Nixon banned psychedelics. They did not deserve to be classified as Schedule 1 ever. They're not addictive. He did it for political reasons. He didn't want people to, he was upset that his people weren't signing up for his Vietnam War. So he shut it down. But Roland Griffiths, who lives here where I live in Baltimore, got that research opened up. Since then, it has been prolific, and the effects are off the hook. We have nothing in psychiatry or psychology that can rival the treatment effects of these plants.
Yeah.
Off
They're-
the hook.
They are our teachers. They're conscious teachers. They will teach you what you need to know in that moment. They will give you what you need whenever you have a psychedelic. I don't like to even say psychedelic because to me it
Cheapens the
it
experience.
does. It cheapens
Yeah.
the experience. It's like a drug thing. And it's not. It's a plant that grows out of the ground. It is here for a purpose. It is here to illuminate us to more of who we are. And it's a teacher. And it's a shame that society has put these things in the closet as something to be shameful or not do or not experience or fear, a lot of
Or
fear,
fear. Yeah, a lot of fear.
and
I personally do believe that, well, they are enlightened beings for sure. And if you want to do it recreationally, you'll get a recreational experience. But if you go in with a guide and you want to have a healing experience, it will open the door to your soul. And so it's amazing to me that one little mushroom this big can put out a mycelium network that goes 30 miles. 30 miles. It is the computer software for the whole forest. They're sending the antivirals to every plant in the forest, the communication network for every plant. They are the connectors. And we know that if you put mushrooms on they have oil rigs on the ocean, they spill the oil. If you put mushrooms in there, they are Shiva. They are the great transformer. They will break down even oil and bring life. They break down even the densest, thickest, deadest material to bring life.
I mean, it's like so magical and interesting and nature is just so powerful and we don't know so much about what really it can do and how conscious it is and how important it is. So, I mean, I know Mother Gaia is going to be fine. She's lived through many an iteration on this earth, but I do, when I speak of nature, I think about the other species on this planet that are conscious, sentient, living, thinking, emotional creatures that have their own soul journey, their own soul purpose with emotional bonds with I mean, it breaks my heart. I almost can't look at it anymore because it's so heartbreaking for me personally.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your book. You have a book, Essence Merging. What should people know about this latest book of yours, Dr. Colleen Quinn?
Well, it starts at my second near-death experience, and it really then I go to the retreat, I learn breath work, and it really is a primer of what you can expect on this journey when you're relinquishing the ego's totalitarian control over your experience to the free fall into this mystery, which can seem at sometimes maddening, lots of times exhilarating, but it's quite the transformation for all of us. So it's a primer of what you can expect, but it's interwoven into this very unconventional love story. So as I said, I went to Costa Rica to learn breath work, and there was a person there who lived on the other side of the lake from me. And a Panaman, our shaman, asked us to breathe together. He said, "You live so close to the White House. That's low dense energy. If you breathe together, you would be elevating the collective field." So he is the greatest incarnation of love that I never ever knew. And we, of course, both said yes. Well, I'm in a very vibrant marriage. He was single at the time, got engaged. But as we first started breathing together, lying down, our eyes were closed, but over time we sat up, we looked into each other's eyes, which is incredibly powerful. When you're in breath, soul to soul connection, that's the first level of Tantra. And Tantra gets this rap that it's all about sex, but it's not. It's about devotion. And so when you choose not to act on those energies, but you harness them, you are getting those raises of Kundalini. So we breathed together for years, and then out of the blue, the term, well, I'll just stop to say that I went to a group breathwork session, and I had a vision of Finn and I traveling through time and space, outpacing each other with horses with manes and tails of fire. Then we turned into each other and we bounced into each other, and then we bounced off over and over. And I had had visions of past lives I've had with him. 3 days later, the term twin flames falls in my lap. I'm like, what's that? Well, when I looked it up and I looked at the lists that were rooted in doing a great spiritual work together, I couldn't believe it. I showed the list to Finn. He's like, that's my experience as well. But then his ego got involved. And so it really is this unconventional love story interwoven into this spiritual primer for people.
I love that. I mean, it is to have a spiritual awakening. It is not only exhilarating and exciting, but it can, when you start to really unpack a lot of these concepts, it could make you sound crazy. It could make you question everything. You have to drop any belief system that you had once upon a time and release it and listen to your intuition and use your own discernment as to what you're experiencing is truth. I mean, it's an exhilarating process, but it's almost kind of a nightmare. I went through Dark Night of the Soul a couple of times, and that process alone is just so, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but at the same time, there's so many gifts in there for you as well. It's like pain is a gift, trauma is a gift, and it leads you to a better understanding of healing yourself, loving yourself, experiencing what true bliss, harmony, joy feels like, and then just releasing yourself from so much guilt, shame, and things that you were taught as a child that just aren't true and don't serve your well-being. It's been a fascinating journey for me. I'm still on it, I don't know
Sure.
if you're ever off of it.
I
Um
don't think I think it's like that song Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
that's right. That's right. Once you lift the veil's lifted and you can't go back into this state of ignorance and just going about your life with and you know So, what about your practice? If people like, I'm kind of interested in breath work. I have not experienced it before. What do people come to you for mainly? How do you help others heal?
Well, thanks for asking. I stopped my private practice in order to write this book and promote it. I do have videos on YouTube that explain the basics of how to do breath work. I will say in my shortest one, which has like sort of a description on one side and the visual on the other, it says open mouth breathing, and that's the way I was trained as a breath worker by Leonard Orr's right-hand person. He brought breath work to the West from India. However, in my experience, as I've gone further with it, breathing in through, and it says on there, if you don't want to have trauma, breathe in and out through the nose. In and out through the nose, I find better all the time because you're activating your parasympathetic, you're activating your delta brainwave patterns. You're going to get more into that soul space quicker. So that's the only change I would make to my, it is in there, but it's not emphasized. I would suggest watching those videos are free. Um, I don't, I don't, I believe in a sacred economy, but I just really am with like you, Christy. I want to see people wake up. I want to see us all wake up and live in harmony. So I want to inspire the best that I can. And I will say that in my book, a big part of it is going into all of those descent trips because they're so important. You have to get rid of that dense. It's not going to be you can't get rid of it, but you can transmute it and harmonize it so that you've integrated it and it's not hurting you anymore.
Yes.
And that's a big part of it. So I think there's a value in learning that. I have resources in my book and on my website. I have 9 simple steps to awakening. That's a free download. So people can check those things out.
Well, I'm so glad you're out there because you are a light worker. We are aligned in so many ways. I desperately think the only game in town is awakening. I mean, and now is the time. It's never been more important for people to understand their own power and who they are and discover what this plane really is. And I'm super grateful to have you on the show. Anytime you ever want to come back and talk more about mysticism, spiritual concepts, breath work, you name it, come on back. I could probably talk to you for another hour.
I
Easily.
love to. I feel you. And yeah, when it's a language that a lot of people don't understand, but when
Yeah.
you learn it and experience it, it's all I really want to talk about because it's the truth.
Yes.
We've peeled off the mask. We're living in
Yes.
truth.
That's right. And nobody likes a truth teller. I'm finding that more and more. Like nobody likes a truth teller. They just don't want to look at their own, whatever. But you keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and let's hope for a, more awakened, more compassionate, more empathetic world. That is for sure. That's the goal.
It's coming.
It is coming, isn't it? Exciting times to be on this plane, no doubt about that. With that, folks, we will see you next week on Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. I will put your book in the show notes and your website as well, so people can go and check it out and get on their own journey, get some breath work in them. I'm going to be doing that myself. And journey well, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Quinn, for being on the Fate podcast.
Thank you.
Bye bye, guys. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. I want to thank Dr. Colleen Quinn for coming on the show and sharing her story. She had a hard awakening journey with a lot of trauma. I identified with it a lot, even though the journeys were totally different and the grief was different. But having multiple episodes of things that happen in your life that are terrible, that you that impact you with so much pain and grief, and then ultimately it leads you to this expansion and illumination and to discovering who you are and healing yourself, and then getting to the good stuff on the other side where you start to see the beauty in it all. It's a harrowing journey. It's hard. and I identified with it. Even though the journeys were totally different, I understood the level of pain and grief and trauma that she had experienced that led her to step into her own path to discover and remember who she is. And now she's out there telling as many people about it as she can to encourage others to open up, to start their own discovery. And I understand that not everybody is going to awaken or be able to even hear that information without the ego completely disregarding it, brushing it off. We don't like to confront real feelings. We don't like to address trauma, address our emotions. It's super unfortunate, but there are plenty of people out there that are able to hear it, that know that there is more to who they are, that are starting to understand that maybe what they have allowed to um, be taught to them from a time when they were children or in school or in their churches or what or even their parents, maybe that's not the whole truth. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's something else that lies beyond what they have been taught to believe about their own person, about their own reality. And I wish her all the best. I mean, I haven't done breath work. I've done a lot of stuff. Breath work has not been in my my scope of modalities. I definitely have had psychedelic or plant medicine journeys, and I've learned a lot through them. But being able to attain that sense of enlightenment, bliss, trance without having to take a ceremony, go into the jungle, and have a plant medicine journey, but get this similar effect seems very um, intriguing to me. And I'm all about having those experiences, which once you're in that realm, you do learn more. Like maybe I'll have a breath work experience and it illuminates me to some trauma that I'm not addressing that's in my body that I can heal. It's all about healing yourself, healing your body, healing the emotions that you have not looked at because either you don't remember them or you don't want to deal with them. Nobody wants to deal with their pain. I get that. But your pain is your portal. Your pain is going to lead to your highest and greatest good in so many ways. Your trauma is your gift. And it seems backwards and insane to even think that way because when you're in the trauma, when you're in the pain, the only thing you want to do is get relief. And it's only after you get through it that you can look back and you can understand why it happened, how it changed you, how you healed from it. And a lot of times it leads to your greatest awakening to who you are. Your body is always trying to tell you something. Your symptoms are not there for no reason. All of us have symptoms, whether they be mental or physical, that are knocking at the door to our healing. Hey, there's something going on with your body. You should address it. And we've been taught to take a pill and to just mask that symptom um, and not address it. What is underneath that symptom? And there's always something energetic, spiritual, emotional attached to whatever disease or symptom that you may be having in your own life. I think it is absolutely fascinating how the body works, how the brain works, and how much we really don't know about how we can heal ourselves. And a lot of which we experience with regards to our health can be healed by addressing trauma in the body. And I loved this episode. I could talk to a mystic all day. And who doesn't like to surround themselves with, like minded people? I don't have ton of people in my life that I can be so open about my own awakening, and I've certainly lost some friends, have fallen away because I'm not looked at quite the same as I used to be because I have a different belief system. But I love myself more than I ever have, and I understand who I am more than ever. And I am out here trying to elevate and raise the consciousness of this planet because it is needed now more than ever. And if you're not on your path, get on your path. Start doing some research, meditation, listen to other podcasts, figure out a spiritual teacher that aligns and resonates with you. It doesn't have to be, I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm learning as I'm going myself. And I use my own discernment as to whether or not it's true. My own internal navigation system. It's all you need. You don't need anything other than that. Turn off the TV, shut your phone off. All you need is to look within and align with your own internal intuition, your heart and brain coherence, and it'll lead you exactly where you're supposed to be in this plane for this experience. I promise. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Get in, do some breath work. The book will be in the show notes as well as her website. And I hope you guys keep journeying with me and keep your mind open to new ways of thinking and being, and understand that there's so much more to learn. You are more than what you think you are. You are powerful. You are limitless. You are a fractal of the divine in your own right. And the faster you understand that, acknowledge it, and believe it, the faster you're going to be able to change and heal and grow beyond this 3D matrix that we're all programmed to believe. Because I'm finding that most of what we've been taught about who we are, our origin story, the history of humanity, is a lie, and that there's more, and that there is so much that we need to understand so we can take our power back and create the world that was always meant to be here, that is much more filled with love, cooperation, joy, creativity than the dystopian nightmare that we currently find ourselves subjected to every day. Okay? Okay. Alrighty, gang. With that, we'll see you next week on Fate, from atheism to enlightenment. And welcome to your fate, everyone. Journey well.